Good morning, everybody. Happy Football Sunday. Welcome to Big Facts. I'm your host, Aaron Barrison, along with Justin Everett. Justin, we
What's up,
got
bro?
so many good fights and games yesterday. I don't know if you're into UFC at all, but there were some awesome fights yesterday. There were some good playoff games yesterday, and then we got a little Sixers basketball to cap it off. What did you watch yesterday, and what did you see?
We had a disappointing day in Philadelphia. I mean, everybody that is confused understand that Ben Simmons disappears. You'll never be able to count on him. You're never, ever, ever going to be able to even get a quarter of what Joel Embiid provides for this team. It was disappointing. It was disheartening. He airballed a three. I'm so fucking close to done with Ben Simmons. Lamar Jackson chokes, bro. That's what I saw most importantly yesterday is Lamar Jackson just chokes. He cannot be again, like Ben Simmons, dude. He's not the guy. You can't count on Lamar to make a throw. Watch Aaron Rodgers early and then watch Lamar Jackson late. And the biggest difference is command of the field. It's all the athleticism goes to Lamar in almost every matchup. He is a freak athlete, but he is just not a good quarterback. And it reminds me of Michael Vick in Atlanta. And until he got to Philadelphia with Andy Reid after he went to jail, he could not play the quarterback position to save his life. So I wonder if Baltimore is going to be in a position this season, maybe next at the latest, where they got to find a guy. They have to find an Andy Reid to come in and teach him how to play quarterback. But that was my biggest two takeaways. Ben Simmons is Houdini and disappears at the drop of a hat, and Lamar Jackson just chokes.
Yeah, so they're not gonna let Lamar go anywhere, but they will have to bring someone in. They're already talking about signing him to a major extension.
That's what I meant, bro. You don't think I meant move him? I meant bring a guy in the house. Yeah.
So they're gonna have to find a QB coach because Greg Roman's done a great job with what he has and what Lamar's skill set is currently. But there's a lot of work that needs to go into developing him as a quarterback. Developing him as just a pure passer, because at the end of the day, Lamar actually led 5 drives down the field, but you can't make the mistake if you're in Buffalo. Buffalo had fans, by the way, that really affected that game yesterday.
Yes,
Home field advantage for the first time. It was great to see. They moved backwards a bunch of times with some sacks. The D-line was getting off. They couldn't run the football. You drove down the field, and points were at a minimum. I mean, you score on that drive, Justin, that flip, that was a 14-point flip. They were driving down, pick six, difference in the game, 17-3. That was 14 points right there. That was the end of the game.
Yeah.
And then he got knocked out with a concussion, which is, I know, another thing that concerns people about Lamar Jackson with the way that he runs. He's going to be taking hits. He's going to be taking sacks. He has to throw the football, and he has to become a quarterback, and we have yet to see that from him.
He's just not a good quarterback, man, and that's what needs to be. Like, he is a great athlete, but like, as far as I'm concerned, dude, Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson right now. Only because Kyler Murray is almost as good an athlete, but he is a much better quarterback. He's a much better natural passer. That's a thing, man. And Lamar Jackson, listen, dude, Atlanta hitched their cart to his horse, Michael Vick in Atlanta. They went through now obviously Lamar Jackson's not going to get caught up in a dogfighting ring, but let's make up that didn't happen. Atlanta was never going to win with Michael Vick. It would have never happened. And Baltimore's got to seriously take a look at John Harbaugh's staff, dude. They got to find a guy to at least teach him how to be Ryan Tannehill. Just be good enough to make a couple throws a game, and we'll be able to get over the hump. And if they don't do that, dude, Lamar Jackson's career is on a terrible path forward.
And I would even argue that even when Mike wasn't considered a great quarterback, he was still a better thrower of the football than Lamar is right now. Because he could flick his wrist and throw the ball 70 yards, so you still had to account for it. And also because when he was in Atlanta, I think his best receivers for a while were Algie Crumpler and Brian Finneran.
Right.
And Lamar's already starting off with better guys than that. Packers game yesterday. close for a little bit, got a little bit out of hand at the end. Again, home field advantage we just saw in the Bills game, and now we're seeing it.
Listen, the Bills game, I agree with you. There was a difference there. Playing in Lambeau is a whole nother fucking animal, man. Like, there's not a lot of guys that go into Lambeau as a visitor and come out victorious, bro, in January. It doesn't happen.
Now, Justin, my point to you about Green Bay, I think it was about mid-season, which proved right for one game, and then they shut me up for almost the rest of the year, was, for the most part, in the last couple seasons, when Green Bay played somebody that was really good on the offensive line and really good on the defensive line, they got bullied around the field. Aaron Rodgers didn't look as good. They couldn't run the football, and they couldn't play defense. This year, they look a little bit different. They're strong on the offensive line. They lost David Bakhtiari at left tackle, and the line's still pushing people around, and the defensive line is playing out of their mind. I don't think Green Bay's defense – I think they're better than we're giving them credit for, especially the way the Packers score points. These guys are able.
Troy thinks they suspect.
The Packers are able, because of how good Aaron Rodgers has been this year, 12-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, are able to just kind of pin their ears back and go after the quarterback because you got to score to keep up with them. That's kind of the difference in that line.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Green Bay, bro. Their defense is good against bad teams, right? Like, the Rams defense is why they were where they were and nothing else. Don't mistake yourself to think it was anything else. The Rams defense is unfucking believable. Their offense is not good. I mean, whether it's Jared Goff or the second, third, fourth, or fifth string, it doesn't matter. Their offense is not good. So Green Bay's defense looks stellar against a bad offense, right? LA's a good team, but it's a bad offense. I don't think that New Orleans, I don't think that Tampa Bay, they don't struggle to score against Green Bay. I don't care if it's in Lambeau. Those guys, Drew Brees and Tom Brady, have 40 years playing time combined between them. I don't think that Green Bay is as daunting to those guys. And those guys and the weapons they've got take advantage of that team, bro. Like, Green Bay's defense did step up, don't get it wrong, but against subpar talent. The Rams were by far the worst offense in the playoffs this year. And that has to be accounted for in what we watched. If Green Bay played great all season and this was an anomaly in the playoffs where they shut down a bad team, it's a different story. But all season long, we saw them struggle against good offenses and be better against bad offenses. And this is who Green Bay is. Aaron Rodgers is going to have to earn this MVP. If he makes a Super Bowl, he's going to earn that MVP because it's going to take probably 35 to 42 points next week to beat whichever team gets.
You have to understand too, the Aaron Rodgers is probably not going to face another. I mean, the Rams had the number one defense by the end of the year in the league. So it's not like we're stepping into New Orleans or Tampa with anything really that different from what you just saw with the Rams. They have a lockdown corner. They have Aaron Donald. Now, Aaron Donald was actually not in for as many plays as he's normally in. He played about 40 to 50% of what he'd normally play. He had a rib injury, made a big difference in the game. But the way guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers know how to get the ball out, it kind of minimizes what the defensive line can do in the first place. So you better have a great secondary, and you better have really good linebackers, and you better be able to run the ball. I'm not sure that Tampa Bay with Tom Brady can necessarily outduel Aaron Rodgers and what he's doing this year. They have the best shot, but I don't think they can. New Orleans
wait a minute. I disagree 1,000%. I think New Orleans has the best shot at beating Green Bay.
I was going to say New Orleans is a little more interesting.
The matchup that New Orleans presents to a bad Green Bay defense is unbelievable. I mean, how do you account for Drew Brees throwing to Michael Thomas and having a guy like Alvin Kamara? They have a pretty good young tight end. They are a dynamic offense with a quarterback that runs a dynamic offense. New Orleans is the greatest threat to Green Bay. I think that the road through Green Bay is much easier for Aaron Rodgers if it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady's shown you this year you can make him uncomfortable. Drew Brees just had like 13 broken ribs and is fucking throwing a football 3 weeks later.
Couple picks last couple games too.
Yeah, but it's just, I'm telling you, dude, it's Green Bay should be there, just like Kansas City should be there. But after what you see in Buffalo, would you be surprised if Buffalo knocks off Kansas City? Absolutely not.
No,
would you be surprised if New Orleans knocks off Green Bay? Absolutely not.
I'd be a little bit more surprised with the way Rodgers is playing if somebody knocked them off before I saw the Chiefs get knocked off. But we've talked about this as well, Just. We talked about it actually, I think, last week before our podcast. Every year, it seems like if there's a very stellar, like superstar quarterback that's on a rookie deal, that team is the biggest threat to win, not just beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but win a Super Bowl. And Josh Allen is that guy right now. I don't think the Browns are going to go in and beat Kansas City, but I think Buffalo can just because of the level Josh Allen's playing at. I don't trust Baker Mayfield in a big game like today again.
Now listen, I got to say this. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to talk about this. One of the highest scoring games in college football history was the last time that Baker and Patrick Mahomes played against each other in college. I think the final score was 63-59 or something fucking stupid like that.
Yeah, 60.
I'm excited to see this game because if Baker Mayfield continues his progress, which is not perfection, he isn't perfect. But he's playing like a good quarterback finally.
Yeah.
If he continues and they don't get if they get beat by 30 today, I think Cleveland is going to slink back into borderline edge of the playoff teams for a couple years while Baker figures out his head. If they go down swinging or if they win somehow, Baker Mayfield's progression, if he captures it all with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb, that team is going to be fucking incredible. And if I'd have told you 10 years ago the Cleveland Browns are going to be maybe an 11 or 12 win team in 10 years, you would have told me I was fucking crazy. You would have bet your house and everything you owned on it that it wouldn't have happened. And I'm excited to see it, dude. That's why I'm excited to see this game.
Is this the first time that with someone with a number one pick it seems like the Browns, what they did, because quarterback after quarterback came into Cleveland with a ton of talent, just themselves, not the team, but talented quarterbacks, and couldn't get it done. This might be the first time that the Browns were like, I'm going to push the talent aside a little bit because I kind of need a hothead with a big ego so that he can actually stay in Cleveland and no matter what happens the next couple years, maybe come out on top because he believes that much in himself.
Well, I got to say something real quick, and I don't know a lot of people are going to connect these dots, and it's not a conspiracy, I don't think, but I think it's reasonable. Baker also became that guy right after LeBron left Cleveland. With LeBron James in Cleveland, LeBron James is the fucking man. It doesn't matter what sport you play or how good you are. LeBron's the guy. When LeBron left, it opened up a hole in Cleveland for an ego to fill in. And I think Baker stepped right in, dude. I think he looked at the opportunity, and Baker became, maybe this is as good as he gets. And if that's the case, they made a good pick, bro. He is, I take Baker over Tua right now. Yeah. Baker is a good young quarterback who could accomplish greatness, but he plays in Cleveland. And what's that going to mean?
Yeah, you could have all the talent in the world, but you have to be built for a place like Cleveland, just like you have to be built for a place like Philadelphia, Justin. So let's talk about
this fucking motherfucker. Fuck Carson Wentz.
So let's start by this. This is not the first time that we've heard this type of news about Carson Wentz. It's not the first time we've heard this news also in the reports about guys like Jeff Lurie and guys like Howie Roseman. It would have been, from reading that report, an absolute disaster if they had kept Duggan, promoted Press Taylor to offensive coordinator, because the problem does not seem to necessarily be those guys per se.
Those guys wanted Jalen Hurts. They didn't want Carson Wentz.
It's somebody that's willing to take some coaching and accountability, it seems like.
Yep.
So how can a guy who was injured for a couple years, saw his backup win a Super Bowl, come into the following next couple seasons and think that he has everything figured out? I'm trying to understand the dynamic, and I'm trying to understand why it's being allowed by who we thought for a couple decades was one of the better owners in the NFL, and who we thought over the last couple years was one of the better GMs in the NFL. We were singing these guys' praises for the last.
Well, let's break them down one at a time. So first of all, I want to make this statement. I don't need to go very much in depth, but if it is easy for you to say Doug Peterson's gone, he was the problem. We're going to be okay now. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Doug Peterson was a part of the problem for sure. But the bigger problem, or as they've been dubbed, I know that you're in the Carolinas, dog, but I don't know how much Philly radio you listen to, but he has now been dubbed the puppet, and Lurie and Roseman are the puppet masters. That's what they literally how they refer to it on the radio here every single motherfucking day. Your responsibility is your own. Doug Peterson owns some accountability in how bad things went. But I don't give a fuck who you are. When you have a guy that's got zero football background, he was a businessman who made a bunch of money and bought a football team. And you have another guy who is a numbers guy and an attorney who's never spent a minute in football, making all of your football decisions. You would tell me I was describing the Dallas Cowboys. That's what you would tell me. Because for years, for decades, that's who they've been.
A couple franchises like that, but yeah.
We did not suffer that same problem in Philadelphia because Jeff Lurie did seem like a guy that was hands-off enough because of Andy Reid. Now, I don't know if Doug Peterson's ever going to coach in the NFL again. I don't know if he's going to go be the offensive coordinator in Seattle, whatever the fuck he's going to wind up doing. I believe personally if Doug wants to, Doug will be successful. Yeah. I think Doug could win another Super Bowl with a talented enough roster in another city. I believe he's a good coach. I think he was terrible here. And I think what happened is that coaching cycle, Doug didn't get one fucking phone call. The Eagles lost out on Adam Gase. I don't know if you remember exactly the parameters of what happened. We lost out on Adam Gase. There was a college quarterback, I can't remember which one at the time, lost out on him. We were down to nobody. And nobody had made a call to Doug Peterson. But Jeff Lurie did. And Doug Peterson came in under the pretenses that they'll run the team and he'll coach the game. I'm sure that was what it was. And then Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. And Doug Peterson wanted a little bit of opinion in the matter. He just wanted to say. He didn't want to take control. It wasn't Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly demanded, give me everything
that was going to be what I was going to say. Part of the reason I think they wanted to make it clear to whatever coach was coming in that they were going to be making the decisions is because they gave too much power to the previous coach and then he traded away their best players.
Yeah, and listen, dude, this is the point, right? Carson Wentz is soft, right? I think he is an upstanding guy. I've got friends at Barbera that sell him his cars. He's apparently like one of the nicest dudes in the world. He's down to earth. He's charitable. He's faithful. That doesn't fucking matter a little to me, but to those that do, he's a good dude. Like, he means well, but you're just too soft, bro. Like, I need somebody who's going to see a problem and run to fix it. I don't want a guy that's capable but too lazy to get there, and I think that's what Carson Wentz is. I don't think he's not the guy because he's incapable. I think he's not the guy because he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to take the level of scrutiny that exists in a city like this, in its biggest sport by far. I mean, the Eagles are the most popular team in this city by a fucking mile. You gotta be the guy that can grab your nuts and take the heat when it's on and overcome. That is what makes the difference, bro. And I don't think he wants to do it. I watched him in 2017. I've seen him do it. I know he's capable, but I think in his mind, he feels like we owe him and he doesn't owe us. And that's a fucking problem. There needs to be a way, I don't give a fuck, pay him $35 million to sit on the bench. He cannot be the leader of this team.
Yeah, and these kind of reports, it's interesting that they come out right after a coach gets fired. I don't always take, personality stuff to heart because I think it's very easy for someone feels they've been wronged to go and put out stories and trash someone else's name. It's you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Like, there was years in Cleveland where nobody knew that Kyrie Irving was the problem that we're now seeing Kyrie Irving is. We had no idea for years because LeBron was kind of able to handle all that in Cleveland. And when you have personalities like that, you have to have someone that can manage those egos, which is actually why I believe that regardless of who the best quarterback coach is or who the best offensive mind might be that could come to a head coaching position, I think Deuce Staley, with his control of the locker room, his control of egos and personalities, and the fact that he's well respected on the team, even if it's just for the next 2 to 3 years, Justin, while they're rebuilding might be the best fit for this.
It'll never happen because Deuce is not a yes man. The reason why Deuce still has a job is because Deuce is not a yes man. That's what his role is to Howie and Jeff Lurie. That's his role. Deuce's role is to be honest, because that's who Deuce Staley is. You can watch him on the sidelines of a game. If one of his guys misses an assignment, misses a block, and his quarterback gets blindsided, misses a pass, misses a hole, Deuce gets on you and makes you fucking work. And I don't think that I listen. The reason they didn't hire him last time or the Chip Kelly time, I don't think has anything to do with any of the hot buttons. I don't think it's because he's black. I don't think they care. I don't think it's because he's young. I don't think they care. I don't think it's because he's a running backs coach. Joe Judge was a special teams coach and just got a job. I don't think it's for any of the hot button issues. I think it's because Deuce Staley has in his mind a clear system of success, and they don't want to change their way. That is what it's like bringing in Wade Phillips is coming up, right? He might come out of retirement. Yeah. Wade Phillips will never take this job. Just like Bill Parcells, if he were coaching, would never take this job. And it's because of the example that was just set by ownership and management that we make the fucking rules. If you disagree with this, you're out and we'll find the guy that does. Those type of coaches that are leaders of men will never come here. Never.
So who is now for this team with these egos and this quarterback situation, this front office situation, who is the best candidate and who would want to come here?
Well, who would want to come here? Who the fuck knows? I wouldn't. I can tell you right now, I'm not qualified to be an NFL coach at all. And if they called me today and offered me $1 million a year, I'd say no. I wouldn't. I don't know who would want it. Who could do it? I mean, there's really one guy to me, bro. Eric Bieniemy might be able to recapture Carson Wentz. That's a possibility because he's got Patrick Mahomes and he's watched what makes Patrick Mahomes successful. But if he can't, I think he would do tremendous with Jalen Hurts. I think that Patrick Mahomes, KC-style offense would be perfection for what Jalen Hurts gives you as a player. So, I mean, Bieniemy's the right guy. I wish I could say it was other guys. But I don't believe in some of them like you do. I'm never going to hire a guy based on how they rebuilt Ryan Tannehill. I can't get down with that argument. I'm not going to hire a defensive coordinator because my quarterbacks are broken. Like Justin wants a defensive head coach and let an offensive staff come in and figure out what the fuck you've got. That's what I would want. But they're not going to do that because it's Jeff and Howie. So they're not going to hire a defensive coordinator. It's got to be Bieniemy.
So at this point, aside from Bieniemy, because he's probably not going to have any in-person interviews until the Chiefs get knocked out of the playoffs, if they get knocked out of the playoffs.
You misspelled win the Super Bowl, but that's okay.
So the other issue the Eagles are going to have is if you want a guy like that and you pass on all the guys that are in line for a position right now, and they start taking other jobs, and you're throwing all your eggs into the Bieniemy basket, and he's like, "Fuck no, I don't want to come to the Eagles." Then
do you know when that happened? Do you know when that happened last? Doug Peterson. They lost Adam Gase, and they had to go call Doug Peterson.
Yeah,
and the Doug Peterson right now is Mike Kafka or Kellen Moore. That's the Doug Peterson. Like, I know that I'm not old on the inside. I know that I'm only 30. I remember when Mike Kafka was a quarterback for this team.
Yeah.
What do you mean Mike Kafka's going to be a head coach?
I think that, from my outlook, if you want to hire someone right now and you want to try to fix your QB situation and you need a young coach that is somewhat going to be a yes man and do something with the roster that he's given, Joe Brady might be the best candidate, the offensive coordinator for the Panthers. They overperformed this year. They had 2,000-yard wide receivers. One of them, another one that went for 800. We haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver under Doug Peterson. And they did all of that. They did all of that with Teddy Bridgewater and no CMC.
Listen, bro. I got another name that I wouldn't be upset with. I really had to dig into this one and see the arc because, again, former quarterback. And when I heard the name, I was like, what the fuck? I remember watching these guys. I might be having a midlife crisis, Ron. I don't even know what's going on.
You're an old man.
I'm a Grey's Anatomy guy. I don't know that I'd be upset if it were Byron Leftwich. I really thought about this one, dude. Byron Leftwich not only obviously is a quarterback coach now with Tom Brady. Byron Leftwich is a player, played with some really fucking good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
He played with Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, is the best you can hope Carson Wentz to become now. I think that's as much as Carson's going to give you. I don't think I'd hate Byron Leftwich.
It also seems like he gets along pretty well with a guy that is obviously, he's the greatest quarterback of all time and could have a huge ego, and it seems like they work really well together.
Really fucking well together.
And I'm sure it's not easy. It doesn't seem to be easy to be working under Bruce Arians either. So
no, listen, bro, Bruce Arians might be, if Tampa Bay finds a way to pull one off with Tom Brady, Bruce Arians next to John Gruden might be the most overrated coach to win a Super Bowl in the history of the game.
Yeah,
Bruce Arians, we used to put up on a pedestal. Do you remember Bruce Arians was like the next Bill Belichick?
Yeah,
he was the next Bill Belichick. He was going to be the next guy. And now watching him, it's like, bro, did you fucking forget how to coach football?
Yes, it's amazing sometimes the stalls that the Bucs go into with Brady at quarterback, two who I'd say are really good running backs, and 3 elite wide receivers. I mean, they should be putting up 40 every single game with Brady at the helm, and sometimes they just have really bad games. Would be interesting to see them play the Packers, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
They blew them out last time, and I'd like to see a little shit show at Lambeau.
Real quick, Troy set up there, Brady losing to Breeze and Peyton 3 times in a season. Listen, man, Tom Brady has played for 20 years. And he's never had a team beat him in a season. Never. Anytime he's played twice, he usually gets over. Very rare he loses twice. I don't think he's ever lost 3 times in a season to the same team. But he's 42 years old.
I know we're talking about Tom Brady, and I would agree with you, Justin. The other equation in that is that teams that have lost twice in a season to a team and plays them again in the playoffs actually do win a larger percentage, end up winning the third game more often.
That's what I'm saying. I know that the chances are against it happening a third time. I get it. But what I'm saying is
they're for it happening a third time is what I'm saying.
Drew Brees is a little bit more mobile and just as effective as a quarterback, but they execute. Dude, listen, this is what I've seen in Tampa Bay. I haven't seen Tampa Bay execute a flawless game plan one time this year. And it makes sense. You got a new quarterback. You got a new system. I'm not knocking them for it. But New Orleans has been doing what New Orleans is doing right now for years. Mm-hmm. They have this shit down front, back, side to side. They got their shit down and they execute. And that's why
they can run that offense and defense with their eyes closed.
Exactly. And that is why I'm saying this is prime for an upset. It is prime for an upset.
If you want to call this an upset, Just, this is an upset. I mean, this if you want to if you want to call it an upset,
well, you got Tampa Bay's got to be favored in this game.
I don't think not in New Orleans. Games in New Orleans, probably not. But we'll see how that game plays out. I want to talk about the Sixers, Justin. So we'll take a minute break, and then we'll get to that. We'll get to Brooklyn. We'll talk a little bit about Ben Simmons. We'll talk about Joel Embiid. We'll talk about the Sixers' place in the East.
All right, bro.
All right, Just. So, Harden came and going. I don't want to keep focusing on Harden, but he did have a
Yeah, you
triple-double.
do. Yeah, you do.
Debut.
Yeah, you do. You want that fat motherfucker in a Sixers jersey. Yeah, you do.
He lost 20 pounds before last night's game, by the way.
You want that fat motherfucker in a Sixers jersey.
So I'm hoping that Troy is still here, actually, because me and Troy were going back and forth last night, and I want to bring up.
I didn't see it. What were you arguing with?
I want to bring up some points.
Listen, I want to just say right now, the chances are I agree with Troy, and I don't even know what we're talking about.
Okay, so Troy is a Ben Simmons defender and a anti James Harden guy, which if you are, I can understand. I want to make a point about Ben because when we talk about Ben, the first thing that everybody says, well, scoring's not everything in basketball, and it's not. Ben consistently throughout weeks and games, he plays winning basketball most of the time. He has some bad games, but for the most part, his defense, his passing ability, his basketball IQ, his ability to finish at the rim, high-level basketball, winning basketball. But I need to just make a point about Ben Simmons for a second.
I think I know what we're talking about now.
We harp on the fact that Ben Simmons is a great passer and assist guy. We also harp on the fact that pretty consistently he'll get you 8 to 10 rebounds a game. So let's put something in perspective real quick. If you don't shoot the basketball, if you don't shoot, which he doesn't, and your only job when you're on the court is to run the offense and pass the basketball, why should I be impressed that you average 8 assists if you don't shoot the basketball? Your only job is to pass the basketball.
Right,
so why should I be
one at a time? Let's attack these one at a time because you're pretty upset about this. I don't want you to build the rage. So it's not that you should be impressed that a guy that good is doing what he's supposed to. You're impressed that that's what he's supposed to do and he does it. Like James Harden, right? James Harden is supposed to score 28 points and average close to a triple-double. That's what James Harden's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. He does it. It's impressive because he's supposed to do it and he does it. We can't.
He has the ball in his hands all the time.
Homie, listen. Don't get upset.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
So while I agree with you, what happens is they sensationalize stat lines. Ben Simmons. What did I say to you today? Ben Simmons last night should have had a stat line that was 11 points, 16 assists, and 9 rebounds. And his stat line was 11 points, 9 assists, and 16 boards. That is a 0.4. That's a purely set up and play the whole power forward. That's what that stat line reads to me. 16 rebounds. You know what that triple-double was? Almost triple-double was? That's a Russell Westbrook stat line. That is, I'm just trying to pad my numbers and look better than I actually am. And that is a problem. But you can't be unimpressed with Simmons' playmaking ability, with Simmons' distribution. You can't not be impressed with it.
I'm not. My 2 other points are that. So
you just said a couple episodes ago, he's the 2nd or 3rd best passer in the league behind maybe only LeBron.
He is, but he only passes. So I'm supposed to be impressed that he gets 8 of them.
You can't tell me that his distribution and his
here's my next point. So here's my next point.
All right, let's do it.
It leads right into it. How many times a game, and I did this already. I have the answer in my head. I want to see what you think. How many times a game does Ben Simmons make a pass and you're just like, oh my God, how did he see that? How many times a game? At least once a game?
Yeah, I'd say a couple. Like 2, 3 max, but normally 1 or 2. Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing that I'm supposed to be impressed with then is that out of the 8 assists he averages, every other point guard in the league can make 6 or 7 of those passes and those reads.
Yes, it makes him better.
Okay, but by a possession or 2 for the game, maybe.
Sometimes, dude, they lost last night by 2 points. A possession's the game.
Why did they lose by 2 points?
Listen. You can't fucking listen. You whataboutism, motherfucker. This is not the U.S. Capitol. We're not arguing like Democrats and Republicans.
Let's move on to the next point.
No, wait a minute. Listen to me.
Okay.
I understand he is far under what we built him up to be because what we were sold was not what we got. It does not take away from the fact that he is an elite level passer in this league. Mm-hmm. Period. You can't say it's not true.
Yeah, there's things that there's ways the defense collapses on him and fills the lanes that they don't do with other point guards.
Holy fuck, man. You just can't say it. You're so bitter. What's the next point? You're just a bitter ex-girlfriend.
The next point is, am I supposed to be impressed that a guy that's 6'10", 6'11" gets 8 rebounds a game?
No. Okay. Well, wait. Accounting for the fact that Joel Embiid is your primary center and Dwight Howard is your backup, kinda, because it's unbelievable to think that there's that many rebounds to be had. But once you look past the center position, Toby ain't competing against fucking Ben for a rebound.
Right.
Ben is the next guy. So no, it shouldn't be impressive. It should be expected. Impressive would be averaging 10 or 11. 8 rebounds is not impressive. It should be expected.
I just can't get over, like, if my only job is to pass the ball and I don't shoot it all, shouldn't I be getting 8 assists easily? And we compare. So let's move on to another point, because you had made a point of building up a roster through tanking.
Let me do it. Let me say it real quick. I'll get it out fast so they know what we're talking about. So my point was, I work for a guy who's 52 years old and thinks Michael Jordan is the greatest player to ever grace a basketball court. He'll never be convinced different. So I can't get him to understand why the tank needed to happen. So I tried to talk to his era. That's what made me make this up. And I made up a list of 5 guys, 4 in your starting 5 and a 6th man, because I think that's what you have in Philadelphia right now. So I'll just shoot the names off, right? Rajon Rondo is Ben Simmons. 16 and 8. They're never going to get better as a scorer, but they're going to be great defenders. They're going to be great distribution guys. I think that's a fair comparison to Ben Simmons. I know that it's really early for Ty Maxey right now. I'm not stupid. I get that. So this is really a future vision, like 2 years from now when Ty Maxey's grown into himself and accomplishes his prime. Ty Maxey's going to be at least as good as Allen Iverson. He might be better. So you got Rajon Rondo and Allen Iverson.
I hate that. I'll let you finish, but I hate that comparison. He's not going to be better.
I know you do, because Ty Maxey is efficient and Allen Iverson isn't. The reason why I'm doing this, you have to remember again how I set this up. It's for a guy who thinks that the 90s and early 2000s basketball is the only basketball. That's how he thinks. So Allen Iverson to him is one of the greatest scorers of all time.
Okay.
Shaquille O'Neal is the most dominant big man in the league in this time. So there's really only one comparison for Joel Embiid, because when he's on and when he's healthy and in shape, he's a fucking monster. He's worth 40 points and 18 boards, just like Shaq was back then. Lou Williams is the greatest 6th man in the history of time, and I'm convinced right now today Shake Milton is Lou Williams. I don't give a fuck what anybody says to me. Watch the last 3 games and tell me that isn't Lou Williams. And the big stretch is if you take away the 2.5 years Tracy McGrady had in Houston, where he was a top 3 player in the league, the injuries, the out of shape stuff, the years that came after, he was a 16 to a 19-point scorer. That's what you got out of him. Now, he was the primary scorer on his team, so it's a little bit different in this case. But 16 to 19 is about what you get out of Tobias Harris at the tippity top. So I gave him these names, and I said, now listen, you have to be okay with losing for 4 seasons to acquire all the stuff you need to gain these assets and build your team around this. Do you say yes? And I finally got him to understand why it was necessary. And that comparison to Ben Simmons, I don't think gets more real, bro. Ben Simmons is Rajon Rondo. In 10 years, we're going to say he was a 7-foot-tall Rondo. That's what he is.
Yeah, so again, I get the point, and everybody signs up for that. But the problem is, and I'll break it down player by player. And I know you know this already, but I'm explaining it for the audience. The consistency that Embiid dominates with is not anywhere near the consistency that Shaq used to dominate with.
No doubt.
Iverson and Maxey it's too early. I can't even go there.
I'm with you.
And T-Mac, again, we're never going to talk about Tobias Harris at any point in his career like he's a top 5 player in the league. And we did that with T-Mac. We were comparing him to Kobe for a couple years. So and then reality crashed, bro. So here's the thing. If you give me a C+ to B- T-Mac and a B+ Allen Iverson and an inconsistent Shaquille O'Neal, do I sign up for that? And I would still say yes, I would.
Yeah. Because at that point, you've acquired the talent. Now what you have to do is find the guy that makes it work. That's Doc Rivers. You have to find the guy that completes it. That's Daryl Morey. This now, everybody thought the last 2 seasons of Brett Brown was supposed to be the culmination of the process. My point of this story, of this analogy is right now is the beginning of the end. We were still in it. Brett Brown was the process. Now that we have the coach and the GM that fills out the roster and gets the Danny Greens and the Seth Currys and sees the Shake Miltons for what they are. Shake Milton's not doing what he's doing right now under Brett Brown. No fucking way.
We did last year at the end of the process. He did at the end of the year last year. He had a 30-point, 40-point game. But he was also starting.
Average 28.
Is he averaging 28 this year?
The last 5 games, he's averaged, I think, 26 and a half.
Okay. So
because Ben Simmons chokes and he's weak and he disappears. Dude, tell me seriously, I can't get this out of my head, bro. How are you Ben Simmons, 6'10", Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Ben Simmons? How do you not take a game where your big man is out, who just racked up 45 a week ago, and just go out and fucking ball? It doesn't exist in him, bro. He does not have the heart of a lion. He's fucking weak.
Yeah, he wants to make the right basketball play all the time, and Ben Simmons is kind of like a big like mastiff. You know, like mastiffs, they don't know how big they get, and then they're real gentle, and then they come sit on your lap because they don't know how big they are. That's what Ben Simmons is. He's a little puppy dog that doesn't know he's 6'11", and he wants to sit on your lap and make the right play and please everybody. When in reality, he could eat your fucking face.
Dog is bad. It's bad. He's bad. He's just bad. And listen, I don't believe like you do that you can't win with him. I think you can win with him. I think with the main components of this roster, if everybody progresses the right way, maybe not this season, but you match up well against everybody in the East. Your only competition is the Lakers, in my opinion, matchup-wise. Obviously, that means you get all out of your guys all the time. They have the components to win with Ben Simmons on this roster, but it would be so much easier if you had Zach LaVine, if you had Bradley Beal. It would be so much fucking easier.
The bigger problem too is, and they were doing this last year and I think the year before, is in the playoffs specifically when Jimmy Butler was here and at certain points last year towards the end of the season when they had to have must-win games, they couldn't keep Ben Simmons on the floor on the offensive end with a minute to a minute and a half left. So my other issue is that when you're coming down to closing these games out and you're trying to win and you're playing for seeding or you're playing for a playoff game, and your second best superstar All-NBA player can't be trusted on the court because they have the potential to foul him and he's not a good free throw shooter, or he just has to come off the court because you don't get anything out of him on the offensive end, then you're losing his passing ability. All the things that Ben Simmons is good at has to come off the floor because you can't trust him in the final 2 minutes of a close game.
You know, and with that being said, let me tell you, I think that is probably the reason why Daryl Morey didn't give real serious thought to the trade involving Matisse. Because if you get rid of Ben and have, let's say, Ty Maxey be your starting point guard or Shake, whatever they do, Matisse Thybulle would have to enter the starting lineup as your defender. Because Matisse is the second best wing defender. Like, Danny Green's really, really good, don't get me wrong, but he's 35.
Yeah. Sure.
But Matisse is your second best wing defender to Ben, and I think having to part ways with both of them, you just created matchup nightmares. Like Tyler Hero would destroy this team with no Ben Simmons and no Matisse Thybulle. Like he ate whenever he wanted to against his team already, having those guys. There's too many good, big, athletic guards, bro. You can't lose all that defense, man. Like, it's potent offenses win. Golden State proved that. Like, potent offenses are really what gets you there. But then LA came right back and showed you that elite defense makes it easier to accomplish the same goal as elite offense. And that's something I think is important to Doc Rivers, dude. And I think that's why these young guys play so hard, bro. This team is going places. But I don't know how tempered our expectations really need to be.
Yeah, I'm looking for some screenshots right now because I'm always saving screenshots to look at stuff I see throughout the week. Speaking of which, there was a report that so apparently that most of the NBA felt that the Sixers had a better offer on the table for the Rockets than what they ended up getting from the Nets, mostly because of the way people value Ben Simmons versus Karis LeVert.
Sure.
But also people don't really value draft picks too much. And there's reports that the reason they didn't pull the trigger is because the guy who worked under Daryl Morey in Houston is now their GM, and he did not want to give Daryl Morey James Harden, and he did not want to do a deal with the Philadelphia 76ers because Daryl Morey is now in the position of power over here. And I thought it was interesting because we've had discussions, and one of the things that I think people, and I would tend to agree with to a degree, I don't always, again, take media at their word, but it's interesting to me how the narrative has been pushed at how toxic and bad James Harden was in Houston. However, the assistant coach for the Nets wanted him on the team and was willing to make a trade for him, Mike D'Antoni, who's now coaching under Steve Nash. And his former GM also wanted him in a trade, which is Daryl Morey. I understand he left and he was disruptive when he left, almost in the same way that Jimmy Butler was kind of disruptive when he left, but he found a team eventually that fit in with his mindset. And I think that's a big part that people are missing here. There's a specific mindset people want to go into a locker room and feel. And after a couple years, James Harden felt that Houston didn't have that. Jimmy Butler felt like Minnesota and Philadelphia didn't have that, and Miami did. And I haven't heard a peep from Jimmy in Miami in 2 years, except for the fact that he willed them and helped will them last year to a finals appearance that they really had no business being in.
Sure.
So I think we're going to see some progression with the Nets. I think they're too guard and forward heavy to be able to make a deep playoff run this year. They're going to have to add a piece. Kyrie Irving's going to have to come back and play basketball and shut up if they really want to compete.
That's never stop. Wait a minute. Back the fuck up. The Brooklyn Nets did not get better. Like, on paper they did. They have more talent now. You got fucking James Harden and Kevin Durant on the same floor.
Yeah.
You are better. But their ability to win a championship got in my opinion, they gave up. DeAndre Jordan, here's a fact. If the Sixers accomplish the top of what's in front of them this year, which I think is probably 54 to 55 wins, if they're that good, if that is what they accomplish and they're executing in that way, DeAndre Jordan's going to foul out in 9 minutes against Joel Embiid. You have no Jared Allen. Kevin Durant cannot guard the hole. You have nobody to stop Ben on a drive if DeAndre Jordan's in a bad position. You have James Harden can't defend. Kyrie Irving doesn't know how to spell defense. You match up terribly against teams in the East, let alone when you get to the Lakers if you win the East. They got worse, in my opinion, in the idea of winning the championship. Now, who knows? Maybe they find a way to get Kyrie out of there and bring in a big man. Maybe that happens.
Yeah.
But without that, bro, I'm sorry, they are awful. You guys score 150 points. That's how bad you are as a matchup problem. And you got to shoot 60% from the floor as a team. And if you don't, you're not going to have the defense to hold up.
As good as the offense is, I think it would be really hard to match up against three teams in the East. One of them being, if Miami happens to pick it up, get healthy, and are the same way defensively they were. The Bucks are still really good. Drew Holiday is one of the best defending point guards in the NBA. He's been on all defensive teams, and actually, people thought he got snubbed last year for a Defensive Player of the Year award, which I don't think he should have won, but he's that good. And then you got Giannis, you got Chris Middleton, who are good defenders. Lopez is a good defender, so on and so forth. They also don't match up great with the Sixers, and I'd agree with you there. Just the way the Sixers are designed, how they are defensively, with Joel Embiid and Dwight Howard under the basket. There's a lot of teams that aren't going to match up.
Toronto might be the only team they match up well against.
And Toronto's not playing well at all.
Right. That's what I mean. And Tori, listen, I get that. I just said this to you, Aaron. I don't remember if it was yesterday or if it was today when we talked. Why would James Harden want to go be in Mike D'Antoni's system? Because everybody needs to understand this now. Steve Nash is no longer the coach of this team. This is Mike D'Antoni's team. I don't give a fuck what they call Steve Nash. Mike D'Antoni got brought in here by the grown-ups because Steve Nash isn't ready yet. And it's a shame for Steve Nash because he's probably going to have...
Nash brought D'Antoni in because he needed help his first year coaching.
He probably will go on a career arc similar to Jason Kidd as a head coach. Mike D'Antoni's system couldn't win in Houston. It couldn't. When they had the matchup ability, they still couldn't win. Now, we can go back and argue the Chris Paul injury and all that shit and what coulda, shoulda, would have been. Fact is, it didn't. I need somebody to explain to me why I should see a worse defense in Brooklyn than what he had in Houston. And tell me that knowing that the head coach doesn't care about defense, you also have bad defenders out there, but you're just going to outscore everybody, but you couldn't do it where you used to be with the same guy. But I can't get behind it, bro. I just can't do it.
Yeah, in Houston, I mean, let's be fair. In Houston, he didn't have Kevin Durant. Well, I mean, Kevin Durant's averaging 30 points a game right now, which I said he would. And he's going to continue to average 30 points per game.
13 games into the season, dog. Don't start pounding your chest yet.
We're talking about Eastern Conference standings. The Sixers went from 1-4 in 4 games, so anything can change. But he's going to end up averaging 28, 29 points a game.
You know what could change? Against the Sixers going up for a rebound with Joel Embiid and bumping into 300 pounds and coming down a little crooked on that foot and tearing that motherfucking Achilles again.
Injuries change everything. Injuries change everything. So we'll see what happens with that. So games today, Just, let's go through these real quick. And I think we've already picked these, but let's just remind between Tampa Bay and New Orleans, who do you have? I have New Orleans as well. Browns and KC.
So I'm going to say this. I know the spread is about 10 or 10.5, depending on what book you look at. If you're betting this game, Cleveland to cover is the bet. But Kansas City will win. I can't imagine that this is a week where Kansas City, just so everybody knows this, is 1-7 against the spread the last 8 weeks. That they haven't been that team that mollywops people.
Wherever people got this spread, it was either 9, 9.5, or 10. I'm not sure if it moved today. For a Cleveland Browns team that runs the football and the way the Chiefs, not only have the Browns covered their spreads, Kansas City has played close games for 9 weeks. It's been
they're 1-7 in the last 8 weeks against the spread.
Yeah. So it's hard to imagine unless they really needed rest. Andy Reid off a bye, I know, is huge. I remember it when in Philadelphia, he rarely lost
every time he won. Every
time he blew a lot of those teams out as well. But it's hard to imagine, Cleveland is better than Kansas City in the trenches. Let's not forget that. They're on almost both sides of the ball. They can run the football. Baker's playing turnover-free football. It's hard to imagine that they're going to win by 10 or more, but I think it could be right at that cusp depending on how the
I think it's a 7-point game. I think it's a touchdown game, maybe 8. So if you're betting against the spread, you take Cleveland to cover, but Kansas City's going to win this game.
Can you imagine if the AFC Championship game ends up being Buffalo and Cleveland?
Again, dude, if I went back 10 years and told you that, you would have lost your house, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for Cleveland. I'm excited for Buffalo in the same way. I'm hoping I get to see a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen matchup, but I'm not going to be mad if the Cleveland Browns make it. I'm kind of rooting for them.
I'm kind of with you, bro. I mean, I'm tired of seeing the same fucking 6 teams, bro.
Yeah, the NFL is turning a little bit into the NBA.
Yeah, it's why Buffalo's so exciting. That's the reason.
Brady's there. Breeze is there.
Rodgers is there.
Patrick Mahomes is there. Rodgers is there. I'm a little tired.
Was there. Yeah.
I'm tired.
I'm with you, bro.
So, any other points just before we get out of here, and we'll be back on.
Well, we're probably not going to be live before the inauguration, and I just need to say something to be okay with the fact that I said it out loud. Because if I don't, I feel bad. I don't have a large platform here, but it's a little one, and I need everybody to hear this. Please, for the love of God, just stop making shit worse. It doesn't matter how many people break windows or how many rooms you commandeer, the United States military will kill you. I promise. I promise you. I'm not saying this in jest. I'm not saying it because I hate Donald Trump. I'm saying it because I don't want you to die for a fucking Cheeto-dyed dictator that doesn't give a shit about you. It's time to wake up and rejoin society. We're waiting for you. We're ready to accept you back. Just stop doing dumb shit. It's going to happen. I don't give a fuck what QAnon said last Tuesday in a decoded fucking tweet or parlor, whatever the fuck they operate on now. Everybody just move forward. Worry about your paycheck on Friday or where you're taking your wife to dinner tomorrow night. Who gives a fuck about Washington anymore, guys? For 4 years, no one's going to care now. We can't undo it. Here we are. Let it die. Stop trying to fucking break into government buildings. They're going to start killing people. And I just don't want to see you die. That's all I've got to add. Have fun with football, AA Ron, and obviously we'll be back on Wednesday. I appreciate you, Tori. Thanks, buddy.
If you want some Donald Trump coverage, you can subscribe to his OnlyFans. I'll be doing that later today. We'll be back on Wednesday. 2 great playoff games. We'll cover that. And big facts on all streaming platforms. YouTube, Spotify, live Sunday and Wednesday. Justin, have a good rest of your day. And I will talk to you, I'm sure, during these games.
Peace, homie.
See ya.